Imagine this. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders.
I don't know. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Guys, I don't know if I'm even capable of knowing all of the secrets within these chapters. I mean, who is, right? But I just feel like, I really feel like there's something missing. When I'm like reading through, there's like, I can feel it. I can feel that there aren't things connecting that should be connecting. I don't know what it is. Maybe as I talk about it, it'll all come out. Kind of like last time. Now, last time I talked about some crazy stuff. I don't know if you listened and agreed. I mean, look, it's up in the air. I'm not saying this is, de facto what it is. But I'm just, grabbing stuff here and there. Today is not going to be any less weird, to be honest. It is going to, well, let's just get into it. All right. So we're looking at Numbers 22, probably 22 down to, I don't know, the rest of the chapter. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to summarize. I'm going to bring some things out. So essentially, you have, last week we ended off, Balaam's on his donkey going with the princes and, the delegates or whatever over to Balak. And so what's happening now in the story is that God, right, the angel of the Lord, shows himself to a donkey, okay, 3 times. So the first time, the donkey kind of goes off-road, and he's like, what are you doing? And he hits him, hits the donkey. I think it's a her, actually. Hits the donkey and, brings her back to course. And then you have a second time, they're going through like this narrow place with like walls on the side, and the donkey's like really squirming, trying to go around this angel. And Balaam, gets his foot caught on the stone wall. It's like scraping. He's like, what the hell are you doing? Hits it. And the third time, it just stops. It's like way too narrow. The angel of the Lord is right there. And he's like, nah, I'm not getting any closer. And he like hits it, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? And God opens the donkey's mouth, and he's like, look, I've been faithful this whole time. Like, why aren't you trusting me? That I'm seeing something here, and I'm sensing, like, I'm seeing danger, and I'm protecting you from that. And he's like, you've made a fool out of me. I don't care. I'll kill you right now if I had a sword. And then his eyes are open. He sees the angel, and he's like, oh my God. And like, falls off the donkey or whatever, he's like scrambling. He's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And he's like, look, this donkey protected you. I would have killed you. And I'm against your perverse ways. Against. So I guess where I want to start, before I get into the whole donkey sees God before not the false prophet. Yeah, so that's 3 things. I guess I want to talk about opposing. I want to talk about false prophet versus corrupt prophet. I guess versus, true prophet. And then I want to talk about the donkey seeing God. Yeah. So first things first, let's just get it out of the way. Verse 22, is it? Verse 22, but God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his adversary. Adversary. This word is Satan. Now, I'm not going to make any crazy connection with like God being the devil or anything, but I guess it's there. No, I'm just kidding. No, so proper noun Satan as a name, right? As like a one person as a name. This wasn't the case until very much later. And I don't mean like historically, like, medieval times, they wrote him in. I mean, there's like this evolution where like evil wasn't one being, evil was what you do against God. Let me think. That's not entirely, I guess. Well, I mean, it is right in the sense that, evil is against good. Again, this word, it just means oppose, adversary, and like for the devil, Satan, his name to be Satan. He's like anti him, He's like the opposer, the accuser, the adversary. So he's like the epitome of all these things. It's like calling somebody, I mean, yeah, it's like the Hulk. Nah, I don't know, man. You figure it out. It's like, it's, I'm trying to think of a real example, but I can't think of, I mean, maybe the Hulk works because Hulk, you can be hulking, you can be like big and enormous, you know, and so calling someone the Hulk, it's like, it's just, that's the epitome of that thing, right? Like, when you look up the word, there is its own definition for it, but then there's also, boom, proper noun, green big guy that gets angry and bigger as he gets angrier. So yeah, I guess it's like that. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting, crazy. That I guess the language here would be the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his Satan. The wordplay, I guess, in our brains, like, with this concept of, oh, Satan is the bad guy, right? Like, I guess that's one of those things that forces you to change the definition of Satan, that it's not this, red devil with pointy, like with horns and a pointy stick, in the pits of a fiery hell poking at you above like a cauldron or something, ready to cook you and eat you alive, or whatever you think of. And it ain't a woman, it ain't a seductress. If you read James, you read this passage that talks about how we are not tempted, God doesn't tempt us, that we're tempted by our own desires, by our own perverse desires. I think that implies that we're not tempted by Satan either. So we're tempted just by our nature, our corrupted nature. Okay. You combine that with, I don't know, I guess you'd have to kind of look at it holistically, but you just get this idea that Satan, his only role really is to kind of cover people with shame in a way that blinds people from God's glory. It keeps them self-interested, self-focused, where they can't look out. In a cosmic sense, if we were to look at it as a court case, what the functions look like is, God is the judge. Jesus is the criminal defense attorney. Satan is the prosecutor, the DA, the snitch, the narc, whatever. So he's just accusing you like, hey, this is what you did. And here's the evidence. And this is what you did. And then Jesus is like, in his defense, Your Honor, boom, holds my hands, And then the jury of angels goes wild and they're like, whoa, innocent, innocent, And then God's like, order, order. And you're like, how is this going to work? This is crazy. My lawyer is insane. And he's like, I don't know legalese. I'm trying to like think of a, movie. He's like, but basically, hey, all your charges are dropped. You're innocent. And the crowd goes wild. And everyone's like, Jesus, Jesus. And you're like, this guy really did it. Whoa. And the devil takes another L. So that's kind of, that is how it works, right? It's not a sting operation, like trying to keep this metaphor going. Like the devil didn't catch you, or it didn't trap you. Like there was no entrapment done, There was no fidgeting with evidence. He didn't like drop an ounce of coke at your house and then circled back to find it and be like, oh, I found coke at his house, possession, nothing like that. He just accuses us for, like, we don't need the devil's help to sin, is basically my point. We do it on our own, and he's just there to catch us and accuse us and shame us and all of that psychology, I guess, of what sin does in a heart, separates us from people. It puts us in this feedback, this paranoia of ourselves, right? All of that, that's the devil. But the act itself, that wasn't the devil. That was just you. That's just you being foolish, you being dumb, you being selfish, you being ambitious. That's on you. That's on me. What grace then does is it changes that cycle. I want to say for better, for worse, but it's not really for worse. What I mean is, like, I'm at a point where I understand that dichotomy. I understand that so well, at least consciously. I don't really, not that I don't feel shame. I mean, maybe for a lot of things I don't, because I understand, one, like, I'm a work in progress. Two, I'm God's work in progress. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. This is Galatians. It's just that idea that, like, I didn't come to God on my own. God, not only did he pursue me, but he opened my eyes, and he opens my heart to new things, to things that I wouldn't have done. I mean, like, a part of what I find amazing, and this is like 1 Peter 1, somewhere in the middle, where angels are in awe of the gospel. I think what they're in awe of is the fact that, like, they understand, maybe, okay, philosophically, even, like, science and rationality tells us, at the very least, we're softly deterministic. What that means is, yeah, you have the freedom of choice. Not even saying that it's an illusion, but there's like an algorithm to our life based on our past, based on how we're, our genetics, based on our likes and dislikes, our fears and our desires, like, all of that put together kind of like charts a path of what route we're supposed to go. You know what I mean? Like, being more emotional, being more being more, like, borderline bohemian. Like, I have this personality, I have these quirks, I have my likes and dislikes. It's going to push me in certain directions, right? Like, I won't go out on my own to do adventure, but if somebody invites me to an adventure that I think is safe enough. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, what I'm saying is, we're all predictable if we know the ins and outs of the person, right? That's why we can, like, guess what our best friends are gonna do if blank. Like, if I told you, okay, think of your best friend if oh man, I can only think of, like, crazy scenarios. Like, if your best friend got $100, what would he do? Some people would be like, oh, bro, he'd go straight to Pluckers, or like, oh, he'd gamble that thing, or he'd probably give it to somebody else, or she would buy some shoes, buy some Vans, buy some, you know what I mean? Like, you already know, and then we can test it, and that exact thing is going to happen because you know them, right? So again, it's not this idea of, like, oh, no one has free will and blah blah blah, but it's like, at a certain point, man, we're just predictable. Okay, in this idea, we understand people are predictable, right? Even people who try to be unpredictable are predictable in the sense that they're just contrarian to what they would have done, right? And you can guess that as well, which was me for a season of time. And that was just, like, completely senseless and destructive in my life. And, like, it's like, why not just do the obvious thing? Because it's obvious. It's like, yeah, but it's good for you. Like, I don't know. I guess an example would be, like, I don't know, dude. I can't think of anything. I just remember being, like, a complete contrarian just to keep people on their toes. And I did that in such an unhealthy way. Like, it damaged me so much. Like, I don't know. I can only think of, like, friendships that I just ended just because I was like, you thought we were going to be friends. It's like, what? What's your problem, dude? It's like, yeah, I got to keep you on your toes, man. Whoa, what am I doing? Like, meet up with friends somewhere and then not go and be like, ha, got him. It's like, what are you doing? That makes no sense. Oh man. Yeah, I guess it's dumb stuff like that. Okay. Point is, okay, everyone is predictable. And in that, okay, I was like, where am I going with that? In that, there is no real route for us to be encountered by God and to fall in love with Him and be a part of that dance with God, you know? And so the very fact that it's almost like a distortion of the fabric of time, of like your timeline, of what your timeline was supposed to be, God interrupts that and brings Himself to you and brings you to Him. We're on the highway to hell, you know? We literally going 90 miles per hour in one direction. And all of a sudden, God just grabs that highway and like does a freaking, a U like Inception, And now you're driving upside down going the opposite direction. Like it just, that's how like mesmerizing and fascinating and like mind blowing it is that we find ourselves in the arms of the Father. So, what am I talking about, dude? Opposing? What? I don't know what I was talking about. But yeah, that's to me the mind-blowing, like that's the miracle of salvation. And I think the angels see it too. We kind of, I don't know, maybe you see it, maybe you don't, but like it's just mind busting, brain busting. It really is. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like if this is the trajectory of your life and somehow like the inevitability of your life going this way, it's 100% guaranteed this is your life. And God does away. Oh, okay. Taking that into account, like I'm completely at the hands of a caring sovereign father that is working his good into me passively, actively, behind the scenes, in the forefront. He is doing his thing in my life, and I'm not along for the ride as if I'm passive because I'm living my life, but I'm also aware of I'm trying to be aware of what he's doing in my life so I don't miss out on anything. So with all of that considered, if I have hiccups, they're just hiccups. I think very rarely do I, and actually I can't say that. There are a few things that I backslide into that I ask myself, is this really who I am? And that is 100% the devil's voice. That's my point, is when we backslide and we feel condemnation. Condemnation is of the devil. Literally, the only thing that the devil does is condemn us, right? So that voice in your head that says, hey, that thing that you said you would never do, you did it again, because that's you. That's the real you. And you're like, yeah, maybe so, right? And so that's why Paul talks about the armor of God, the helmet of salvation. Protect your mind with the truth of the gospel, right? That the old you is dead and you've been raised anew. You're a new creation. You're someone else. And so I know we're going off, right? Because we're supposed to be talking about the angel of the Lord, aka Jesus, being an adversary to us, right? Which, come on, that's like its own like theological issue that I guess we really haven't even chipped into. But that I don't know. I just felt like I needed to say that. That voice in your head that tries to condemn you. That is literally the devil. The voice that tries to shame you. I think that's why it's so important for us to really think of ourselves as children, literal children. Like kids just do what they want and they don't know boundaries and they don't know. We think because, we're 30 years older that we know boundaries and we know what we should and shouldn't do and we know better and da da da. At the end of it all, we just do what our heart desires and we say oopsie when that hurts someone. You know what I mean? I'm trying to simplify and dumb down the human condition, because it's so important for us to recognize that, so that we don't take ourselves too seriously. Why is it important to not take ourselves too seriously? I think in both measures, because this is humility, guys. This is what humility looks like. I don't have, like, the evil that I do isn't the most evil thing ever conceived, and you're like sin incarnate and, whatever. And also the good things that you do, you're not an angel, and you're not this like perfect, um, vessel of God's love. You're just human. You're just someone who gets some stuff right, gets some stuff wrong, like telling the truth is a noble thing. And also you can be a jerk. You know what I mean? Like, you're just a bundle of characteristics that has its pros and cons. In some situations, you're going to be bad. In some situations, you're going to be good. But you're just yourself, you can be passionate. And that, you can be a joy to be around. And, like, you can make people feel so loved. And you can also, get into trouble with the opposite sex, or you can get angry, and or whatever, like you can have a lot of emotion, and that's good, and that's also bad, and that's you're in the middle. It's neutral to have strong emotions, but it goes both ways, right? Like, we can't think like, oh, I'm grown, I know better, and da da da. Like, yeah, maybe in a sense you know better, and yeah, I mean, maybe for some of you, your definition of maturity is to like keep your feelings in check and this and that, but it's an outburst. Your emotions will burst out of you one way or another. Either you repress them and they come out in really weird ways. And what I mean is in kinks, like that could be the case. It can be the kind of people you attract, like, to your life, people that you're repressed in this area, and then these people express it wildly, or not even wildly, just in a responsible manner, whatever the case is, but you attract those kinds of people. That's one way. It comes out in your rationale. You start rationalizing these emotions, pretending like it's logic when it's not, right? It's just a facet of your perspective in life and this and that. Like, yeah, man. People aren't, there's no escaping the human condition. And that is like to me, one of the saddest things, like, that I carry, to be honest. Like, I think about that a lot, is like, I can't escape being human. And I don't mean that in like, I don't know. I don't know what I necessarily mean by that. No kind of weird ideation there. It's just, woe is me. It's the end of Romans 7, I think. Just that idea of like the human condition is so vain, and there's no escaping it. I can't intellectualize myself out of being a human, and I can't like enlighten myself beyond humanity and the human consciousness. Like, I just can't. Like, that's just, it's not possible. Anyone who tries and sounds like it belong in an insane asylum. Now, that's a whole thing, right? Is like, are insane people the true enlightened ones, and da da da. Dude, what are we talking about right now? Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I don't know. Yeah, maybe crazy people have a clearer vision of real life, and our brains are more balanced in the sense, like, I don't know. You have brain chemicals going off all the time to make sense of the sensory input. And so, like, your perspective is literally curated by your brain. Like, your physical perspective, like the things you hear, the things you see, it's all just frequencies that your brain turns into picture and sound. So yeah, maybe there's a sense that unbalanced brains see the world for what it really is. Now, what are you talking about right now? What does this have to do with Balaam? Well, as a seer, He must have had something going on with his brain chemistry. Am I right?
Sorry, y'all. It's cool for real. You know what I just remembered though? Like, subscribe, send this to somebody, send it to that person you're thinking of, send it to that person who needs to hear this. Look, I know perhaps it'll make it awkward, whatever, but be passive aggressive. Like, it's fine. Send the indirecta. It's okay, bro. It'll mean a lot to me. Do it for me, bro. Do it for me. Do it for you. All right, let's get back to the serious stuff though. Keep it in mind though.
No, I'm just kidding. Let's not. Okay, let me just get back into it. So yeah. So Jesus opposed him as his Satan. That, I don't know, man. That to me is just a crazy sentence. Numbers 22, verse 22. The angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his adversary, as his Satan. I think of God opposes the proud. I think of that specifically. I think of that God opposes people who, try to ruin themselves and ruin others, ruin beauty, But yeah, I think on that, like, again, I'm not trying to say anything about what it means, right? I'm not saying that Satan is actually Jesus or that, Satan is Jesus's brother, none of that. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I just think that sentence is like poetry. I don't know. Like it's just a crazy thing. And that's that, right? Like maybe no, it's not. I'm trying to think of, going back to the beginning where like, I feel like I'm missing something and there's things that aren't connecting. But I don't think this is it. And again, this is the problem when you look at one verse and you try to create this whole systematic theology based on a phrase, a verse, and then you find verses that say the same thing, right? So then you'll look at Chronicles and Kings with the David census and be like, see, the devil is God and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and that's it, right? But then you don't take into consideration Jesus saying when the Pharisees call him Beelzebub and he's like, hey, a house divided cannot stand. He's like, look, I'm definitely not the devil, okay? I'm casting these out because I am a force of good. Evil cannot cast out evil. Good can cast out evil. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you can't do that. You can't do that. So that's not what I'm doing. But I just thought the wording, the phrasing, especially as a modern Western thinker, right? When we have this concept of Satan as a person, not as a noun or a verb, sorry, not as a verb, right? A noun, an adverb, bruh, English. But yeah, I don't know, whatever, whatever category it falls in, we don't see it as that. We only see Satan as a proper noun. I guess like in a wordplay, in a bar sense, like rap sense, I look at that and I'm like, oh, whoa, bars. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, again, I'm sorry. I'm saying the same thing for 3 minutes now. The language is cool. That's really all I'm trying to say here. Okay, so then the second thing, the donkey, right? The ass seeing God before the prophet does. Let's have fun with this, So, have you ever been stuck in a situation, a little proud, a little arrogant, and you have that friend, the friend that you least expect this kind of talk from, the friend that's like, I don't want to say he's the dumb one. I don't want to say, but it's like maybe the most irresponsible one tells you to be irresponsible. And you're like, nah, not from you, bro. Nah, anybody but you. Like you, like my grandma could have come out here. My dad could have come out here. Not you, bro. Not you, cousin Joey, bro. What? You can't tell. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like that sense where like, the donkey, bro. The donkey opened his mouth to tell you, bro, you're messing up right now. Like, you're out of line, right? And the donkey didn't even say it that way. He's just like, bro, you know me. I've always been faithful. Why would I randomly just be stupid? And he's like, I don't know. You've embarrassed me. And so, yeah, it's actually really interesting. You ask like, why are you embarrassed? It's in verse 31, I think. Or 29, sorry. And Balaam said to the donkey, because you've made a fool of me, I wish I had a sword in my hand, for I would kill you. And the donkey said, am I not your donkey on which I have ridden, in which you have ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way? And he said, no. Right. And then the Lord opened his eyes. Okay. We're getting too far ahead, but he's embarrassed. He's been made a fool of, and you're like, a fool of where? Like who? By yourself? Well, there's a mention that there's two people traveling with him. That's the only time they're mentioned. But you kind of have to, keep that in mind, keep the scene in mind that it's three people. He's traveling on a donkey, maybe in front of them, and he's doing all this weird stuff. And the two guys are just like, what's up with this guy's donkey? Like he sees God, but he can't see the road. That's crazy, and so he's like super embarrassed, right? So again, corrupt prophet, you see a little bit here, like that he cares about his image. He cares about, himself. He cares, he's selfish and ambitious. Now, I don't mean that if you and I weren't on that donkey, and we're riding against the wall, scraping our legs, or the donkey stops and you're like, come on, dude, what are you doing? I'm not going to say that's not embarrassing, but there's this sense of like, I'm a prophet and I hear divinations and this and that. Like he has this reputation and people are in awe of him. And and for him to have troubles with a donkey, it's like seeing, I don't know, some world-class athlete not being able to drive a car, and he's like, and like the lights are going off and the windshield wipers. You're like, bro, you can dunk from the free throw line, but you can't drive an automatic car. Like you can't drive. You don't know how to drive. Like that's silly. And that is like where his embarrassment comes from. Is like I'm this mighty man. I cannot show myself to have any problems, So that's that. Now why I bring that up, going back, sorry. So yeah, that idea, man, that the one guy you don't want to hear from, you don't expect to hear from, especially wisdom, is the one just laying it out, and you're like, Lee, my goodness. So that's like one thing that we, I don't know, like you've got to be real blind, real proud if the fool is telling you what's what. You know what I mean? And I don't mean, because I guess that's the thing, right? It's like there's layers to being foolish. Being arrogant is at the bottom of the barrel. Like it's one thing if you're just not a wise person. Like you just don't, like that ain't your ministry. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing if like you're just living your life, you're a simple guy, simple dreams, and you're just out here having fun, a good time, and that's you. You don't have problems with people. Yeah, sorry, I'm like having the whole like, not Forrest Gump thing where like he was low key a genius but dumb, but in the sense that like people who overthink things, who are like super complicated and blah blah blah, they tend not to have that great of a life. And you got people who don't really think about it, who just love family, love friends. Like they just get to the heart of the matter. And it's luck, right? Because, you didn't decide, oh, I want to be a guy who just gets it first run, and that's just you and you're just a happy guy. Okay, sorry. Let's back it up. You might not be eloquent and you might not have this expansive vocabulary, right? Yeah, you might not have like these wonderful thoughts and phrases and things, going for you. But at least, not that you're going through the motions, but you're kind of going where life takes you, in a sense that you're not stubborn, right? You're not fighting against anything. So, if like for example, my wife got sick, I could be like, no, I have things to do. And I can just be so stubborn in this is what I need my life to be. When life is saying, hey, you gotta pivot. You're gonna have to pivot a little bit for a couple days, a week, whatever. Like that's just your life, That's just life. You just gotta be constantly pivoting. But we can be so gung ho in one direction that life starts beating us because we're so gung ho in one direction. Yeah, I think of a trail. Okay, if you're in a trail, trails wind and do all these things. It kind of like will loop a little bit or whatever. And if I just go straight in this direction, I'll hit where, like, I'll hit the waterfall or whatever, right? You can go through life doing that. You're gonna get cuts, bruises. You're gonna sprain your ankle. You might take a bad step, dislocate your patella. You know what I mean? Like, a lot can happen. You get chased by a bear, or you can just follow the path. You can pivot with the path, and be subject to the path. So that's kind of what I'm saying. And so in this, I mean, yeah, that's the ungodly ambition. This is selfish ambition, right? This is what we're seeing. We're seeing a guy who's like, I just want my house filled of gold and silver, that we talked about, right? That he was like, if you offered this to me, I still wouldn't say yes. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. And he's like, oh, wait, what? Word? And so he went after it, right? And nothing could stop him, right? And so we see that the donkey, right? The donkey could see, and the donkey did stop, and the donkey did warn and slow him down. And so, yeah, my point is, you don't want to be that guy that's so stubborn, that the guy that no one expects you, like the last person you want to hear from, says it, and says it like the way where it hits, and you're like, dang, he's right. And that's kind of the thing, about pride and humility. I say that, but like, he's got to have some utility, right? Like, he's a good guy. I guess I know that that's a real feeling. It's like, man, if I heard, the last person I want to hear from is this guy, and he's right. Like, that stings, right? But in reality, like, I know people feel that way, but also, I guess that's what people mean by you can learn something from anybody. I guess people have been proud to the point where the guy they didn't expect to threw down wisdom. I say that, I guess, because in my case, I don't know if that's ever really happened. Mostly because, I don't know. I'm not trying to say that I'm this perfect guy, but I just can't think of a time that I've been so arrogant. Well, no, I have been so arrogant. I guess I just can't think of an example in my own life. But yeah, I've been so arrogant for sure, 100%. But I guess people just don't say anything. Most people just stay quiet when you're acting a fool. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you're right. It just means no one wants to bother getting in an argument with you, and you be defensive and them being like, bro, I'm trying to help you. That whole thing. So in my sense, I think people ignored me, avoided me, all that in that time. And I just had to learn the hard, quiet way. I think it's because I just always brought arguments, and people were like, I'm not dealing with that. Yeah, I guess I was trying to be, what do you call it? Relatable in that. But again, I expand out a little bit, and it's like, anyone can give good advice. That's not a crazy thing. But I know that there's just some people you're like, I'd rather never hear from that person. Like, who is this guy? Like, getting marriage advice from somebody who's, I don't know, 10 marriages deep. It's kind of crazy. But like, it doesn't mean they're wrong, And look, people can learn from failures. And yeah, I mean, they haven't figured it out still, but they figured out that. I don't know. To me, like, wisdom comes from doing it right and doing it wrong. I think it's just the quality of the wisdom. And you can, if somebody's like, oh, this is what I did. And you're like, bruh, I just did that. That's what got me here in the first place. And then you're like, I'm not talking to you. You know what I mean? That's different. But yeah, I don't know. Do we care who gives us wisdom? I mean, I know people do, because people, ignore their parents, for example. Parents, meaning well, they hit you with nuggets and you're like, whatever, man. Like, you don't know nothing and da-da-da. And you get older and you're like, they were right all along. Silly me. That happened with, I don't know, some music. I was watching a podcast. This guy was talking about, he's a musician, producer, all that. Big guy. And big guy, very big. And he was saying how his dad, who's like an artist that didn't make it kind of deal, super talented, but had an attitude about him, didn't make it, whatever the case was, right? He would give him advice, and he's like, you didn't make it. You're not at this level. You don't know, Dad. And then he ends up getting to the tippy top, and one of these guys gives him the same advice, and it clicks. He's like, no way. Like, my dad had the answers, but I was just too proud because he didn't make it like I did. I'm the superstar. And so then, that changed his relationship, with his dad, which is super cool. But yeah, I think of those things, it's like, maybe you should just listen and consider. I don't mean act it out, because sometimes, yeah, you get bad advice and that screws you over and you're going to blame the guy. And I don't think that's fair, but do a little research. I don't know. Think about it. Consider it, That's the least we can do, is be a considerate person. So yeah, the donkey talking, bro. That's crazy. Other thing I want to bring up is that God revealed himself to a donkey, bro. I want to talk about how the presence of God is completely unmerited. Okay? You can't pray the right prayer. You can't give enough money. You can't worship so pretty that the presence of God comes. That is not how the presence of God comes. The presence of God is the greatest equalizer on this planet. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how talented you are, how in tune with spirituality you are, right? We see here, okay, there's layers to this. You have a corrupt prophet who sees God. Okay, that's one thing, right? A non-covenantal person, one. Two, selfish, prideful, greedy, arrogant, ugly, right? Like, just start listing up a bunch of stuff. He is not a good guy, yet he divines properly. He is a diviner. He is famous for cursing who he curses and blessing who he blesses. Like, these things happen. He is an instrument of God, but a piece of crap, right? This guy sees God. Okay, that's one layer, right? Like, oh, wow. He speaks to God. God speaks to him. He has these visions. This is crazy, okay? That's one layer. The second layer is God hid himself from this person. So it's not an ability, like, scratch that. It's not an ability that you have. Maybe. I don't know. He shows himself to a donkey. A donkey can't verbalize anything. No, this one can. But a donkey sees the face of Jesus, the pre-incarnate face of Jesus, and is like, this guy's going to kill me and you and everyone here. Let's avoid him, huh? Guys, people, please. We're gonna die. 3 times he shows up to the donkey. What do we get out of that? We get that, again, there's no amount of money you can tithe that will win God's affection, that will win extra favor from God. Yeah, I think of, Kenneth Copeland's and, those kinds of people that are like, oh, tithe, your faith is the amount of money you give. Nah, homie, nah. I mean, there is a sense that tithing loosens the grip of greed in your life, loosens the grip of mammon. It subdues and submits money and redirects it as a tool for the kingdom of God, right? That is true, but you can't tithe enough to cure your mom of cancer. You can't tithe enough to restore your family. Like there's an essence that tithing aligns you closer to God's will, and in rearranging your heart, taking money out of the pedestal, you create a space where family can be rearranged because you have the right attitude towards them, and you see them in the right perspective, and you can be more conscious of people trying to help your mom, whatever the case is. Like but giving the money itself does not warrant. You're not buying a ticket. You're not buying a VIP ticket to the presence of God. Do you know what I mean? You're not bribing God. You cannot bribe God. That's kind of the deal. You cannot bribe God. You cannot be worthy enough for God, right? Hey, look at these beautiful prayers I pray. Are you listening? Right? Jesus says, look, the Gentiles, Babylon, and the Pharisees do these eloquent prayers. Don't pray like them. Go into your secret place and pray like this, right? And he gives 2 stanzas of a prayer. It's like, bro, just get to the heart of it. Get to the meat of it. I need you to sustain me every day. You're a holy God. Deliver me from evil and temptation. Right? It's a mind frame of resetting every day. Hey, God is holy. I need you to sustain me today. And keep my eyes vigilant and keep me away from any temptations every day. Such a simple thing. And he says that's all you need to do every morning, every afternoon, every night. Just pray that. Now, I'm not saying that interceding has no merit. I'm not saying that, because that is a spiritual gift. But what I'm trying to say is that you can't live holy enough for those VIP tickets. You can't earn VIP tickets. You can't buy VIP tickets, right? And you can't finesse VIP tickets in the sense that, like, you can't have a beautiful worship experience and create an atmosphere that God's like, oh, they got the vibes, I'm going there, right? That's not how God is not moved by external things. This ties us back to Moses' intercession and how Moses interceded. We talked about how Moses did not intercede by saying, I'm your prophet. I speak, we are one, and you can't make a fool out of me. And he didn't, say like, look, I've been faithful. I know everyone else has been unfaithful, but you got to keep going because I'm doing good, or whatever the case is, or like, look how far we've come. Look at what we've accomplished together. Like, is this really what you want? That's not what Moses said to God, was it? He said, no, you have steadfast love. You forgive iniquities of generations over generations. You are a faithful God. This is not who you are. You're not one to quit. You're not one to give up. You're not one to stop loving. That's not who you are. Only God can move God. Only the character of God can move God. He's entirely independent. I don't know if that sits with people. He doesn't need your money. He doesn't need, your talent. He doesn't need any of these things. we do, right? As clergymen, as church, as, whatever. But God doesn't. And like, yeah, I guess I ruin my own like dialogue by like, oh, this is also the case, right? But I mean, it's that, right? Like, organizations can't function without money. So yeah, they need money, but God doesn't need your money. God, what he needs is a contrite spirit, is a repentant heart. Like, you really want to manipulate God in the sense you really want to get from wherever God is, right? You want him to turn his face to you. It's not with money. It's not with beautiful worship. It's not with eloquent words. It's with a heart that says, I'm sorry. Those two words, I'm sorry. He's like, wait, what? Who said that? You? Wait, why? Why are you sorry? Because I made money my God. Because I tried to earn your affection. Because I didn't know who you were. I'm trying to earn you, but you've given yourself entirely for me. I'm sorry. That gets his attention.
Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.